The things in law when you really need to do things in the right time, yeah, that's one of those. Because the assumption is, if all those employees, nuclear employees, including this guy, are passing on back and forth for, he says 15 days, so that's even better. But for the real time, which was less than 5, so less than a third of that, the fact that all those were passing by and nodding and waving, nobody ever talked anything to me. But since he's the one talking, he should do by his own assumption. His assumption was 15 days. So let's imagine this Judge Judy's or any other episode you can have of any judge or any other thing talking. It'll be the simple fact on his own marriage. So you're telling me that this guy was here for 15 days and you never talked to him. So because if you did before. Okay, so that's a disputed point. Never mind. Because that's a disputed point. He didn't. Nobody did talk to me up to that day. That was the first day. And on that day, the interaction happened as such. The one you see in video early, followed up by the one you see in video, you don't see in video. You see the video by the car passing by later. And that was the time. That time when you see the video, it was the time the guy went down there, make the return, and coming back. That was it. That was the time of the day. So, if in the audio, he says 3-something p.m., and I'm saying that a little bit of doubt in my mind because he could have said 4:23, and that's what the 3 in my mind stuck from because they were drugging me at that point. But it doesn't matter because he was certainly recording that. Even if I wasn't, he was. I was recording one of the phones, but the phone was inside a bunch of things, and I don't know if you have been recorded properly. But for what it's worth, if he recorded that, means that either he recorded himself lying again in an official thing related to this, which again, this is nothing burger. This is a simple case of, first off, he had to talk to me first. As a matter of fact, at best he could talk to the police and the police would invite, because the thing is, you have to have some level of, this is where you see the police officer quoting that. Remember I mentioned something like the police officer was quoting me when he said something? Yeah, something like me telling you this. So when you see that video, and you see the police officer saying, explain something, which, why? You don't need a huge speech to say quite simply, this is private property, I need to move away. The main point I'm talking too much is because I'm being drugged, or because I'm trying to get my brain to be, you can see how soothing for me it is, and I'm doing that. In that case, it's either mockery, or it's because they really enjoy the sound of the voice to explain something trivial as far as, privacy law, the privacy owner, or the owner of a private property retains property rights, which, yeah, we know kind of how it goes. So, at the end of the day, the only thing was, as far as the facts go, information about being private, which is still arguable. That's the point I should have mentioned. Although he was not letting me talk, as you noticed that. For someone who wants to talk so much. Every time I started talking, he would just talk over me, if you listen to that. So people were expecting to be allowed to speak uninterrupted, he was interrupting me every time. And unlike me, he hadn't been drugged, or, presumably, not by other people, presumably, or was not trying to, or was not in that situation, which again, for any cop, and that's why police officers are usually understanding, they know that for you it's just another experience in your day, but most people don't talk to police every day or any frequency. So for them, this is a big deal, so they tend to be more nervous. So it is expected that you should stay calm and collected while someone else be more agitated. In normal circumstances, though, this is a nothing burger. This is a guy lurking in the woods. It's not a house. It's not like a valuable property standing nearby. This is like some woods. He's just there. He's there for days, and according to the own guy's argument, which means that if he caused a problem, you wouldn't be calling now. You'd be calling days ago. So, now again, he lied. Again, not even lie a small lie. He lied as in he was literally in the middle of the mall in front of everybody. Lie. But for what it's worth, and it's a nothing burger. It's literally a case of, he's disputing leaving? No, then why am I here? But most cops say that in the circumstances, is he disputing leaving? Maybe he lied about that to the cops too, in which case it's furthermore on his plate. And as again, the cops not going to take that, because the thing is, if he didn't lie to him, it means that indeed, to be fair, nothing really major happened, but just between you and me, the cop knew that was a lie, because I said it was in the mall, like, and everybody knows about everything. Everybody knows what it was, knows that 15 days is a lie. So much so that I think in between the whispering that happened between the ex parte, between the criminal and the cop, you would have a lot of saying, hey, look, we know that's a lie, shut up. Something along those lines. I cannot say that. Obviously, I cannot say that as an accusation. I didn't hear that. I did hear the mockery of me, though, particularly the thing about the hands that I mentioned before. That was very improper for a police officer to say on that context. But not very improper on the context. On the context of what you see, that's not a big deal. It's just a what? But on the context of this crime, that is proof of involvement, and it was intended as such. Ideally, so I wouldn't expect something which. Both strategies, Cotton. Try to show that I would never have side effects. And yeah, for what it's worth, again, my expectations were laid out before, which is going to cause a lot of outrage on people because seeing someone being abused, they already have low expectations because of the sheer amount of abuse that they suffered before. Yeah, again, for individuals that have been using that same type of outrage, except based on lies and with sadistic sociopaths. At least you know that people can do that. And if the idea is that you know that the people you talk to are so bad that other people that are good are not going to be as nasty as they can be, and it is partially true, but a lot of people can be really nasty, even good people. Again, as I said, those two cities in Germany, a couple others as well, should look up to see that. You know, the thing is, and I'm not saying that I want that. All right, no, obviously that's just an example. But the point is, I'm not saying that I want you to be necessarily nasty. I expect you to be, even. Or I expect you to listen to me, for the matter. What I'm saying is, quite to the contrary. Several times said you never stoop as low as they are, or as they do. But again, for what it's worth, sure they have all figured out. You know, how could some individuals collectively known as piss and shit just flown upon themselves and fake a huge, disgusting, stinky mess, right? All over the place. So, the result today is, as you see, them throwing drugs in front of police stations because they found that's funny too. You can imagine the other repercussions that I just happen not to be aware of that just, yeah, but you probably will because reporters are very good at finding things out. So, yeah, again, who would have thought that when laws bypass and people find it funny, including people who are supposed to enforce the law, other people tend to exaggerate a little bit more to one side or the other. You know, human beings exaggerating and extrapolating a couple of things? No. Either way, particularly related to crime, right? And again, honestly, I don't think that the police officer is doing it. I mean, I don't think it's difficult for them to potentially act for sure, but I don't think that they're the ones doing it. I think it's someone else who indeed finds that funny. And again, what would you expect? What else, rather, would you expect when you see the things you see? And they're treated in that way, in this way. So, for what it's worth, all that I said is true. I try to express that in the most clear way that I can. It's true either way. I try to express that in the best way that I could, in the most factual way that I could. The address being in front of me now, and they will try to frame me virtually every day. So sometimes some mistakes may happen, they'll be turning mistakes. I don't feel like exaggerating there for two reasons. One, I don't really need to. Essentially, it covers their huge hole by themselves. Exaggerating just to make things even more unbelievable than they are. It's nothing else. Sometimes it downgrades things to be more realistic. But usually make it very clear. It's not so much downgrading, it's downplaying. It's most, they downplay, I would be downgrading. If nothing else, I make it very clear that just assume is the word. Every time I say assume is class, you can also imagine something the lines of, I know this is a bit of a stretch to expect people to believe, so, but even if you assume that only half of that is true, it's too egregious. It's not I'm trying to tell you half the truth. I'm telling you the best of everything in the best way that I can. It's just that even if you just believe them all, believable parts based on what you get to see in video and other sources. That still is not fucking math. About the other power, how am I still able to keep going for this? Again, as I said, I don't need to comment on the intelligence. As far as literally, that's how it goes. That's like 50%. More than that. That in that immense intelligence, they made this a public situation, so now everybody knows. So now everybody's kind of aware. So it's not very true. And up there, you have the extra little bit, and still just a little bit, which is many things that are functionally designed to make it last longer. As I said, if that was just really doing that all at once, they would have killed me long ago. Alright? As they used to do in the torture days, by releasing things very close by, they'll cause incredible amounts of pain. I don't know if we'll be able to take much of that. Not just the pain, it's the impact on my body. And that, okay? Anything we're not concerned. Yeah, it does give me some pause to mention that here, but ultimately, as I said before, the possibility of murder is accounted on the possibilities. It's undesirable. I don't want to die. I very much want to live and change the world and make it more sense of what's working for this. But much like what you got to see when they ditched the cat, they are not reliable partners. They'll never be. They will never make a treaty that they wouldn't tend to honor decently. They'll just buy their time to do another crime in a second later. And if they'll be doing that through animal cruelty, that just fucks them up with their own peers here, let alone you, let alone anybody else. Doesn't accomplish anything. I just thought the cat's a huge drag for me. I'm just here because of them. Or else I would have left earlier. Today as well. Even with the other crime, most people didn't have to point here. I can just reference them later. Or from other places. And I mentioned more than a few times they're throwing drugs here. So, again, they had to eat. And I knew that I hadn't fed them yet. And we saw when I did feed them. So, because I was finishing this. In a way, yeah, I was talking about this, but I could do that elsewhere. I couldn't feed them from elsewhere. So the point is, you see the drag they are on me. And even if that, we'll show very clear notice. They are never going to be in any way, shape, or form able to. So instead, I rely on you. Public case, and everybody else is aware of what's happening. See the faces of that? Did you see the faces of whoever assaulted me at night? Assuming that you can't. You definitely filmed on the camera here. But even if you couldn't, you should see the faces of everybody else who's fully aware of the crime as it happened. From those guys who law enforcement. And they're not only aware of that, they find it ridiculously funny. And they're not shy to let you know that voluntarily. So, and I'm not only supposed to mention that in these passage to say that they're probably aware of it. But the ones you see in the mall and those you see elsewhere, I'm not shy about making that clear. I talk about things, in fairness. There was someone who did pay the food for me yesterday, in fact. So, for things I mentioned during the night, I don't know if I remember mentioning this. At some point I realized, and I blame myself, I had generally not. If I didn't mention it because I didn't remember, and in fairness, it stays in a much more relevant video, because the video from yesterday is going to be on the file, even to the press, along many. This one is really cheap right now. So, it's, for what it's worth, far more relevant. So as I said, it's not everybody. I never said it was. From the first time arriving here, even. I even tried to implement, when I got to the city, some of the things that I was doing in other places. I'm trying to understand why people were thinking that I was a bad person to begin with, which long give up endeavor. They know everything. They know more than enough, at the very least. So now treat them as belligerent parties instead of unknown people who didn't know for sure. And after I present you in the best way in order to have it described, such is what they are. As I said, I have to stop, eat. It's already 11:05. This has been going on non-stop since 6 for 5 hours. Jesus Christ. More like 4 actually, because I think it was about 7. It was about 7 when I really kicked in. I started early, but also I paused there in half an hour. So for essentially half a shift in any job, essentially for half a shift of non-stop, say for almost like a quintessence, like almost like a poetic half an hour break, I've been non-stop documenting that. This is what I said, even moments like this, talking, just listen to my voice, listen to me, outside the ambiente of crime, soothes me. But even that, just nothing to work, because I want to be complete, because I want to see everything, because I want to save the opportunities, maybe the one opportunity I have to expose everything. Today, it stops. As I said, I don't know my own fate, but I know that. I know you'll be seeing this. Never stoop as low as they do, but also don't let them get away with what they did. If you send that fucking teenager or kid, and you shouldn't, I'm radically against that, but it's talking about political opinions are gonna die when the time comes. To jail as an adult because you're just angry enough about that crime. How can you look at a crime like this and just say that it's okay with a slap in the wrist? So, all the ones that killed, all the ones that took away. The sheer joy, the sheer circus and mockery of all of that. There's so many potential millions of individuals involved. The literal turning of human life into some type of joy, and stuff. Now you listen to that, you listen to everything that I say, the factual things, the concrete data, and you tell me with a straight face that you believe that when they say something about believing any crap about that not being real. Note that I don't even need to say what you do or what a reasonable person do. You tell me you believe, they believe. You're not talking about the reality, you're not talking about how believable it is, you're talking about how much you expect them not to be lying. Because I don't think that the answer is any more than zero. Of not to be lying. So. And again, don't forget a final thing. Always the same crime. Things to them, the things to me. The things to them that they kidnapped them one day after I found them and slept immediately in front of them there. Just in case you think I'm connecting to match. That's what happened. Second day that I know about them, didn't comment on any video, any film, anything whatsoever. They had to be stalkers. But being stalkers, next day after I slept in front of them, using my body to protect them, well, they probably went there to assault me just like they did here. And secondly, recently, the one time when I go to do the backup of the files in February, early February, and the second time, last time I still the little juice, which you have digital, so I think someone's trying to mess with that these days. And the ragging of the bag that I used to carry away. Not different than the rag that I did, not yesterday, but the day before, on the bottom, remember? So, again, just in case you think that the connection doesn't really exist only in my head. Oh yeah, by the way, another spare of the torture drugs. So good thing I hadn't stopped yet. Very light, particularly compared to before, but definitely torture drugs. There's a confirmation. Give me a second, I'll have to wait a minute. Well, no. Yeah, let's wait a couple minutes while I'm thinking. Me? Lucky. All the protection. It's good enough. You know, it's good enough. I saw when I was and there there's so much happening. I'm gonna drink straight from this. Yeah, this is the one that was in the cup in that night.